Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. Welcome back. I can't talk very loud because our next guest is still asleep, but it's always a joy to have with us Todd Friel, and he hosts Wretched TV, seen every day here on the Dove television network. He's a humorist. He uses sarcasm. He uses crazy headlines, and he interviews anything that would walk or talk. And he has way too much sugar on his nutty granola every morning. Oh, there he is. Hello, Todd.
We've got 2 hours to fill. Sorry, I dozed off waiting for y'all. Catch a little catnap. You know, I'm actually starting to say y'all better. We've lived in the South now for 6 years. And when I first got here, I said, you all. And they looked at me and they knew that I was nothing but a Yankee, and they wanted to send me back up north.
Really? Well, why don't you come to Oregon?
Hey, wait a second. Now, is it your state that is now legally smoking marijuana, or is that your neighbor state?
That's Washington.
Ah, well, you'll be next. Don't worry. The kids will be able to buy pot at the local store. I understand, too, they're actually doing a farmer's market so you can get your medicinal marijuana.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and you know what? You can go across the state line and buy they're calling it recreational marijuana. You're not supposed to bring it back into Oregon, but who's going to check? Yeah,
honestly, it is another demonstration, Perry, and I think this might be our theme for the day. The world's thinking is darkened. It has become this Hobby Lobby thing has been a fascinating study, not from the standpoint of the ruling itself. I'll leave that up to the experts on law, but the response of people. Seriously, I listen to these people. I think I would rather get into a 3-point stance and fire myself into a brick wall and just slam my head against a rock, because it is so ridiculous the way that people are responding and thinking.
Well, it was such a narrow opinion, Todd. Why do you think everybody's up in arms over it?
Well, I think the feminists are up in arms over it. By the way, the feminists who are up in arms over this issue, as if the decision indicated that we're going to shut down every Walgreens and CVS pharmacy and bar women. We're going to tase them at the Walgreens so they can't get their medicine. Honestly,
yeah.
In the meantime, you've got women being kidnapped in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. Not a word from Hillary Clinton, but she said that this ruling was disgusting. We celebrate a little victory, but it's a reminder of how far our country has come and how it has changed, that there has to be a Supreme Court ruling on this, and how narrow it was. We might not be celebrating for very long.
There's a lot of little issues I say little big issues I want to get your opinion on. The border now is chaos, and it's interesting. Everybody can come across the border except for our imprisoned Marine.
Now this is a tough issue for the Christian. And I think we need to start out and take a look at what does the Bible say, yeah. And then we'll take a look and see what does the Bible say, and then we'll conclude by figuring out what does the Bible say.
Okay.
God has determined that borders are what makes a country. Without borders, you don't have a country. God drew the borders for Israel. Mm-hmm. Borders are okay. Without them, you have, I don't even know what you have. Without borders, I guess you just have a range where people can wander around, yeah. But you don't have a country without borders. So it's okay to have borders. I think from the Old Testament, we are informed that we should have a heart of compassion for aliens who are willing to melt. If they were willing, if foreigners came into Israel and were willing to convert, take up the language, take up the culture, they would be treated as a typical citizen. If they would not, then it was okay to boot them. So I think we at least get a hint of some of the ways that we should approach the issue. And the one that we shouldn't miss as Christians is that we should indeed have a heart for the alien. Mm-hmm. And especially, Perry, this is, I get it. The border's wide open. We look at the economy, what it'll do, the voting, all of those issues. But have you seen the images of those kids on trains coming into the country, riding on top of a train? Mm-hmm. in the middle of they have to jump onto a train to get into our country without a mom and dad. These are little children. I know they've got scabies. I know they've got diseases. But wow, my Christian heart should have some compassion as I try to figure out what is the right thing to do biblically.
Well, you know, I think you hit the nerve because, yeah, there's a lot of violations about borders. I get that. On the compassionate side, are we willing to go down and help the least of these, especially children who, quite frankly, I think, Todd, have been victimized by their own country to be sent up here? And if we don't, you know, they probably will end up in sex trafficking if something isn't done, or they're going to be sold, and some of them are dying before they even get here. Now, the Catholic Church apparently in California is stepping up and opening some outreach systems for this. But it is a mess. It's a chaos. We got a president that won't get down there and take a look, but he's willing to go raise some money today. We have a chaotic problem. We have a crisis on our hand.
We do, and Nancy Pelosi said this is and anytime you quote Nancy Pelosi, we all go, "Oh!" But she said this is an opportunity to show compassion to God's children. Okay. Everything about Nancy Pelosi aside, even though I have a great desire to take all of the illegals and ship them to her very rich district in San Francisco and say, now make a decision, Nancy, she's still right on this. These are human beings made in the image and likeness of God. And while I try to take my Bible first, then consider my politics, my political affiliation, what Rush Limbaugh says, I want to do it speaking with a Christian compassion for human beings. Ultimately, we don't really care. We do care, but ultimately, how they got here, who's to blame, our hearts should be breaking about this situation. Now let's talk about all the legal issues with a broken heart, because I fear that we can talk about the issue and be right and sound like unloving jerks. And then I think everybody loses with that tone. On the other hand, it's been said, or at least suggested, that these children are pawns to dilute the system, and therefore the only answer is total amnesty, and that opens the door for the parents. Yeah, I'm not even, by my comments of saying, let's speak with a heart of compassion, I'm not saying to tear down these walls, open up the fences, let everybody come in and give them a rowboat for the Rio Grande. I'm not saying that at all. We haven't explored those issues. When we talk about these people, let's remember they're people. I just hear a lot of conservative Christian talk that sounds so sharp, that sounds so angry. Look, if you're going to have righteous indignation toward bad government and bad laws, that's fine. But let's remember, these are people knit together in their mother's womb by God himself as we talk about legality. All right, I got to take a break. When we come back, I got a couple quick questions. One is, do you think the way we are evangelizing in America has changed? We don't seem to be effective. We're not changing the culture. Now, we may be winning the loss, and we may be getting people that are hurting into the church. That's all a good thing. But has that resulted in a way we go about it? We'll be right back with, yes, Mr. Granola himself, Ted Friel, in just a moment. Today. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back with our good buddy Todd Friel. He hosts Wretched TV. You see it weeknights here on the Dove. And actually, we rerun that program whenever we feel our audience is about to doze off. We throw Wretched TV on the air. And we have been known to do that, Todd. Yes. And then we get all these emails. Who is this guy? So anyway, you ought to move to Oregon, because when you say you all, everybody shows up for a salmon barbecue. Right. Now, actually, I've been getting emails from that last segment asking if I'll be a keynote speaker at the Democratic National Convention. No, I'm not saying open up the board. I'm not saying that. Just saying. Let's be Christian when we talk about this stuff. Okay. All right. Now, what's happened to evangelism in America from your perspective? Well, I'm going to actually give you a quiz, Perry. This comes courtesy of Roger Olson, who wrote an article at Patheos, and this is actually an 11-point quiz. He says that evangelicalism, and we'll get to evangelism, but he says evangelical Christianity has changed since he grew up in the church 7 decades ago. Now, I want to share his observations. And Perry, you tell me if you agree with him or not. Fair enough?
Fair enough. Go.
All right, here we go. The first thing that Roger Olson, who's an evangelical, so he's not throwing stones, he's an evangelical, saying what happened. His first change that he noticed is evangelicals used to talk a lot about the return of Jesus Christ. Come, Lord Jesus, come quickly. Looking forward to his imminent return. And he says he never hears that preached about anymore unless it happens to be some wild-eyed crazy saying Jesus is coming back next Wednesday.
I would agree with that.
Okay, number 2. This is related to the first one. Not a lot of talk these days in churches about heaven or hell.
Oh, totally.
Unless, of course, somebody took a trip to heaven and wrote a book about it.
You know, we're not preaching about hell at all. No.
Okay. Okay, you're bumming me out. You're agreeing with Roger. Number 3. To be in evangelical Christianity, a lot of focus on missions. There would be Mission Sunday, an offering for the missionaries. We'd be praying. We'd get little cards. But he said these days you don't hear a lot of talk about encouraging people to have beautiful feet and go and bring the gospel of Jesus Christ. Agree or disagree?
I would disagree with that.
All right. Then would you like to call Roger and complain?
No, I just don't think he's totally accurate, because I think there are churches with still strong mission emphasis.
That's great. That's good to hear. That's these are. Look, he didn't call George Barna and do a study. These are his.
I'll call George. Yeah. Okay.
There was a huge emphasis. This one might sting a little bit. A huge emphasis in evangelical Christianity on being separate from the world, not physically, but lifestyle-wise. And he's pretty critical that we look as worldly as the world does in our actions and in our words and in our lifestyles than we did 70 years ago. Agree or disagree?
Totally agree.
I liked it better when you disagreed. I'll be honest with you. Number 5, according to Roger Olson, that Christians wouldn't do things in the past like luxury vacations, fancy cars, or what he calls McMansions. But these days, it doesn't seem to be an issue. He thinks that evangelical Christianity has changed. Nobody ever talks about downsizing. Nobody's critical about anybody's lifestyle. Agree or disagree?
That's a good one. I don't know. I think there's a little of both. I don't know about that one.
All right, number 6. He says when he was growing up, they actually had debates about whether or not you should get any sort of government loan or any sort of government subsidy, because you wouldn't take government money. That's a handout. 1 Thessalonians, you don't work, you don't eat. And so Christians, evangelicals, according to him, they would just eschew any sort of government programs. He says today we're just as likely as unbelievers to get on the dole, and that's changed. Agreed or disagreed?
Totally agree.
Yeah, I think there's still a debate. Is that a sin or not? But he's just saying these are changes that I've noticed.
Yeah,
this is number 7,
right.
Roger Olson. And this one, wow, get ready for this one. He said, we evangelicals 70 years ago, we loved America, but we weren't political. He said today that line is completely distorted and blurred, and evangelicals are perhaps more known for their political activism and lobbying efforts than we are for the gospel of Jesus Christ. Please disagree.
I think that's the perception, but the results says no.
So you would say that evangelicals are more known for being ambassadors of Jesus or card-carrying Republicans?
Well, no, I think they're perhaps known for being card-carrying Republicans, but that does not say that they're good at it, because the results show that they're not.
Number 9, if I'm doing my...
Well, you asked.
These are just his observations, which, by the way, I think it's worth taking a look at, because, there has been some change in evangelical Christianity, and we shouldn't ask, was it better or are we doing better now, but which is the most biblical, and use these to be introspective. Number 9, he said, evangelical Christians used to do things like memorizing their Bibles, did family devotions, much more biblically literate than today. Agree or disagree?
Agree.
I just saw a pastor of a megachurch in an effort to be hip and relevant, doing a sermon series on Jesus Goes to Hollywood. Guess what? Guess what movie, to be hip and relevant and current, did he pick as his sermon text last Sunday? Would you like to guess?
No, go ahead.
You maybe would think, well, you know, one of the movies that is out today, the Tom Cruise movie. No, he chose to preach from Dumb and Dumber, 1994.
Wow.
Number 10 from Roger Olson. Evangelicals used to talk about the blood of Jesus a lot, and these days you don't even hear that term. Peter used it, by the way, in 1 Peter, but not a lot of talk about the blood anymore. That seems to be a change. Now, I don't know that that's better or worse, but it does seem to be a change.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
And the 11th, I think, for our consideration is evangelicals used to be evangelists. We used to evangelize, and now we consider evangelism to mean inviting people to church as opposed to going out and proclaiming the good news in the highways and the byways. Agree or disagree?
I agree with that.
And I think, if I might suggest, the reason that so many Christians are fearful of doing that is because we've kind of gotten off track with understanding what the gospel actually is. And when we go back to the basics, suddenly we realize I don't need to be a theologian. I just need to understand the gospel, and I can evangelize anybody. But I think we've kind of forgotten the basics in evangelical Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. If you listen to the messages to church, it's more me-focused than it is reverence to God. I mean, I say that respectfully, but we seem to have lost, A, fear of God, and B, a reverence of God. You agree with that? That's my one question to Todd Friel.
Yeah, no, I think what you hear so much, and these are not, I'm not saying that these people are heretics, but we've confused the benefits of the gospel with the gospel itself, because the gospel itself is Jesus died for sinners so that we can be forgiven. The results of that, my thinking changes, my hope, my attitude, I have joy unspeakable, I have assurance, I'm not afraid of judgment anymore, my whole life changes. And we've taken all those life changes and said, come to Jesus and get these life changes. And we failed to say, no, 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 you must repent and put your trust in the King. And the result of that will be all of these things. And I think that fundamental confusion has caused us to not go out and ring doorbells anymore because we've kind of forgotten what the gospel is.
All right, let me ask you a question, another one. Do you think we've lost the fear of God, that there really is a hell and there really is a consequence to our lifestyles?
Martin Luther was a very coarse man. And if you read some of his, like the Tishrei and his table talks, where it was recorded what Luther said, you'd go, wow, he was so coarse and he was, he's so smacking hard against the Pope. And wow, the way that he talked. Why? Was Martin Luther a crude man, or was he just a man of his times and that's the way that he talked? My point being, I think we Christians can be more influenced by culture than we realize. And I wonder if postmodernism, which says, hey, all roads lead to God, nobody can demand that they're right, everybody's right, nobody's wrong, and the worst thing you can do is be judgmental, we adopt that, and we feel like we have to protect and defend God and make sure that he's not presented as anything having to do with wrath or judgment. And so in an effort to make God look nice, we've lost the fear of the Lord, which is the beginning of wisdom.
You know, Todd, you do a lot of on-the-street programming, and I really enjoy it and appreciate your boldness in that area. What's your general feel out there? Do you think that the average person, non-believer out there, A, believes that there is a God, and B, that they may want to be acquainted with him?
Yeah, well, my observation would be, not to skirt your question like a press secretary or a former president, but what I noticed out there is the postmodern mindset. That's why I think we saw the response to the Hobby Lobby decision. They just talk like noodles. It's like you're speaking like a sausage. Yeah. The world is so darkened in their thinking. I asked one person, I pointed to a bench and I said, what is that? And this guy said, it's a bench. I said, I think it's a watermelon. Am I wrong? And he said, no, I don't think you're wrong. This was at a seminary in Atlanta, Georgia, and this man was studying for his doctorate of pastoral ministry. He believed a bench could be a watermelon. Why? Because if that's what you believe, That's what it is. And that has infected the world. And the only way to reason with that is to not reason with that, because their reason is darkened, their understanding is confused. We need to be preaching the Bible, the two-edged sword that cuts through. We need something supernatural.
I got about 30 seconds. A big question. It's not fair to ask you this in this amount of time. But rumors of wars, earthquakes, all kinds of weather things. Everything seems to be upside down. Right has become wrong, wrong, right. Are these the last days?
Well, they are the last days because Jesus ascended into heaven, but those signs should not be markers to tell us the date that Jesus is coming back, but a reminder that he is coming back. So when you hear of rumors of war and you see a tornado, go, oh yeah, Jesus is coming back. Come back soon, Jesus. That's what those signs are for.
You're a hoot. Thanks, brother, and I really appreciate what you do. Thanks for what you do. We're honored to carry your program on theDove TV.
You know, and we love you guys. We're very grateful for you.
All right. Well, listen, take a nap. You need it.
Back to it.
Okay, see you later. Todd Friel, you can see him on theDove TV weeknights here on theDove at 9 o'clock. And then sometimes you catch his show anywhere where you think you're dozing, we put his show on the air. God bless you, pal. See you later. We'll see you next time on Focus Today.